welcome to this last session of EUA-CDE Annual Meeting 2021, the last day, and the session will be definitely very interactive and productive. I'm Irma Gzalidze, the Head of Quality Assurance Service at Tbilisi State University, Georgia, and at the same time, I'm EUA-CDE Steering Committee member. Today, we will be discussing successful inter-institutional collaboration in doctoral education. Actually, during these 3 days, we covered several topics concerning this issue, but at the same time, probably during the session, we will be discussing this research collaboration, which has become more important over the years. The European University Initiative alliances are working on developing joint doctorate schemes to enhance the mobility of early stage researchers within the network and beyond. Co-tutelles also are important and they play an important role in international collaboration within and beyond Europe and are currently being discussed by EUA-CDE Thematic Peer Group, and today we will have the presentation on that. In addition, doctoral candidates themselves regularly express the need of collaborative experience to be formally acknowledged. One way to address this could be Dr. europaeus label. Since its introduction in 1991, it has served as university-driven initiative to enhance collaboration and to make it visible with guaranteeing the diversity of approaches. During the session, we would be discussing definitely the challenges and the opportunities of collaboration between institutions at doctoral level, and probably it would be very much interesting to see how to make it more visible during this period. Today we have 3 excellent speakers, those who would contribute to the discussion, and I would like to present them. Laurinda Leite is a full professor of science education at the Institute of Education, University of Minho, Portugal. She holds a PhD from University of Portugal and MA in science education and the first degree in physics and chemistry teaching. With research interest in science education and science teacher education, she was a responsible researcher for the research projects, published several articles, book chapters and books, and coordinated a research group on science education for sustainability. She was director of Research Center in Education and coordinated master and PhD program in science. We have as a second speaker Luciano Sasso, the Faculty of Pharmacy and Medicine, Sapienza University of Rome, Italy, received his PhD in pharmaceutical science from Sapienza University in 1992. He is the author of more than 250 scientific articles published in peer-reviewed international journals with impact factor. He coordinated several research projects and has been referee for many national and international funding agencies over the last 30 years. In the last 15 years, he participated in the several projects and has been speaker and the chair at many international conferences organized by unica network of the universities from the capitals of Europe and other university associations. Here, Professor Sasso has been a member of steering committee of unica for 2 mandates, and he is currently president of unica. Last but definitely not least, Sylvie Pommier is a deputy vice president for doctoral research at Paris-Saclay University and president of RNCD, the primary academic association for French doctoral studies. She is also a professor in mechanical engineering at ENS Paris-Saclay, and she coordinated the pooling of doctoral studies of Paris-Saclay University, constituent faculties, institutes, and components institutes, and the development and implementation of common doctoral training policy for the University of Paris-Saclay. As you see, we have a set of very distinguished speakers, and they would be having presentation, 10-12-minute presentation each, so that we have room for discussion. And I would like to remind you that there is a question and answer section, and you could post your questions or comments, and then after the presentations, we would address them to the corresponding speakers. So I think it is time to pass the floor, and Laurinda, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Irma. Good morning, everyone. My presentation is about the work of the thematic peer group on co-tutelles and joint doctorates. And I'll start by giving you an overview of the presentation. I'll start by introducing some information on the thematic peer group. Afterwards, I'll say a few words about the relevance of the topic and about the way the peer group conceptualizes a co-tutelle. Then I'll summarize how we see the added value of co-tutelles and highlight some challenges that may constrain the development of this form of collaboration for doctoral education. Finally, I'll share you for discussion a few ideas that I believe may help to overcome those constraints. So, the thematic peer group on, sorry. Yes, sorry. The thematic peer group on co-tutelles and joint doctorates includes representatives from 24 EUA-CDE member universities that were selected through a call. These representatives and their institutions belong to 15 countries, and I have the honor of being the chair of this thematic peer group. We met online a few times with the aim of bringing together expertise in the thematic area of co-tutelles and joint doctorates. So far, we gathered information not only in the course of our meetings, but also through a questionnaire on the topic. Detailed results of the thematic peer group work will be presented in a report to be completed by 2022 and also during a webinar. As you may be aware of, co-tutelles are not a new issue. However, in the past years, international co-tutelles have become an increasingly popular form of collaboration for doctoral education. In my opinion, this is partly due to a demand for from doctoral candidates that have perceived the advantages of having training experience abroad, and it is also partly due to the place that internationalization has been acquiring in the agenda of higher education institutions in Europe and worldwide. Nowadays, universities and even accreditation agencies consider international cooperation of strategic importance to develop expertise and improve mobility of doctoral candidates. A survey carried out in 2021 by the EUA Council for Doctoral Education showed that co-tutelles and joint doctorates are considered as very high or high priority by 54% of the respondents, even though they feel that implementing co-tutelles is a very complex process. The term co-tutelle is generally used in a similar way among European universities, but sometimes it overlaps with other concepts like joint doctorates, European doctorates, etc. The thematic peer group discussed the meaning of co-tutelles, and its members agreed on that. A co-tutel refers to the development of a research project of a doctoral candidate which deserves the agreement of usually two higher education institutes from different countries. The doctoral candidate gets at least two supervisors, one from each university. The thesis defense takes place in one of the partner universities, and the result is accepted by the other. For each student, a written agreement signed by the representatives of the both institutions stipulates all necessary conditions and legal norms that govern the co-tutel. A degree is awarded by both institutions under the form of a joint diploma or through two diplomas explicitly related to one to the other. In order to highlight the real conditions the degree was obtained and also to avoid multiplying the PhD degrees awarded, the diploma should say that the PhD degree was awarded under a co-tutel agreement. We also discussed the added value of co-tutels, and it is our belief that co-tutels may benefit the candidate as well as the institutions, supervisors included. From the candidate's point of view, the co-tutel fosters the development of relevant technical, personal, and social skills, and it overcomes limitations that may exist in one of the universities, like shortage of qualified human resources or laboratory equipments. It increases international networking opportunities with researchers, including other PhD candidates from other countries, and facilitates candidates' mobility and access to employment. It also provides additional training experience to the candidates' research management, with regard to research management skills and foreign language skills. From the partner university's point of view, the co-tutel strengthens international research collaboration or reinforces collaboration with a specific partner university that has already been collaborating with the first one. It improves the level of doctoral education offered and attracts good candidates from abroad. It also improves conditions to get access to new international funding schemes. The co-tutel also offers collaboration between supervisors in different countries, and therefore it promotes the exchange of good supervision experience and research practices. Despite the added value of co-tutels, universities are confronted with multiple challenges when implementing co-tutels. It is often argued that they are complex and bring extra workload in comparison with normal doctorates. In fact, co-tutels require a higher administrative burden because we need an agreement, and this agreement depends on several people and services, as well as on the regulations of two institutions and the laws of two countries that may be quite different and hard to match. This is even more complex because co-tutels are individual processes, which depend more on the individual candidate or supervisor's will than on an institutional well-planned strategy for international cooperation at this level. So for each student, you need to organize a process, and this is maybe quite time-consuming. However, However, if co-tutelles are complex but are worth being implemented, then the question is, what can we do in order to make co-tutelles more simple and friendly? This question was not yet too much discussed in the thematic peer group, but I'd like to leave some ideas for your comments during the discussion. The first one has to do with the possibility of designing an institutional strategy for co-tutels. To do so, we may need to answer questions like why a co-tutel, for what, with whom, and when to start it. The second idea has to do with strategies for reducing the administrative burden. My suggestion is that we can explore the possibility of designing and signing agreements between universities and doctoral programs that set the academic, administrative, legal, IP included, economic, etc. frameworks, and that can be valid for a time period of 5 years or so. Such an agreement would enable the use of a simple addendum for individual students focused on the work plan and schedule of each one, but all the other stuff would have been done already. The third idea has to do with helping students to become aware of the funding sources and their requirements and application times. Students may be required to have a decision on co-tutel before applying for a scholarship, as the type of scholarship they apply to, at least in Portugal, may depend on the type of doctorate they will engage in. As I said before, I would be happy to have your comments on these ideas and hear about other possibilities that we may have to overcome the challenges of co-tutels, and that we can continue discussing in our thematic peer group. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Laurinda, a lot, and I would invite the next speaker, Luciano. Could you hear us? Please, the floor is yours.
Yes. So thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here. I would like to thank Alexander Haskell for the kind invitation, and Irma Gredlice, I hope I did not mispronounce too much your last name, for the very kind introduction. So as Irma said, I'm the president of Unica. Very quickly, I want to mention that Unica is an association 30 years old, based in Brussels, and at the moment we have 54 members in 38 capital cities. So I think it's a good forum for discussing issues related to doctoral education in many countries also not belonging to the European Union. And let me, okay, so sorry, I go back to, okay, yes. So we do have a forum within Unica to debate doctoral education issues. We called it Masterclass. I started in 2009, and we had several meetings in the beautiful city of Dubrovnik. And now, of course, due to COVID, there was a change now of approach. We continue to work online, and very soon we hope to go back to a new normal, in which maybe hybrid meetings will be organized on these issues. In the masterclass, we debated several important issues related to doctoral education, including quality of supervision, transition from the master's degree to PhD. This is also very interesting because it's quite different in different countries. Employability of doctorate holders. This is a topic very important for me. I feel that very often many doctoral candidates, they start, of course, this experience thinking of the academic career, but unfortunately we know that in Europe and in many other areas of the world, very often there are no positions, not enough positions for doctorate holders to enter an academic career. So we need to be aware of this and try to plan the doctorate, also taking into account these important aspects. And of course, employability. I think the topic of transferable skills is also very much linked, because we know that in industry and in general in the non-academic careers, transferable skills are very much appreciated. And in this respect, I want to mention a website that I'm sure that all of you know, the vitae website, that I feel is really very useful, when designing a doctoral program, because it has. I will not go now into all the details due to the lack of time, but this framework I think is very useful, because it designs different domains. And then in the next one that is even more detailed, I'm sure you cannot read this, but it is available online on the vitae website. You have very interesting domains, subdomains, and descriptors to look at actually the different possible transferable skills and also hard skills that doctoral candidates can develop during their program. I want also to mention a project that now is a bit older, but still, in my opinion, very interesting, by Lydia Borrell-Damian, on careers, also in cooperation with industry. I found this report still very interesting, and I think we should maybe proceed also in the near future to do more of these studies, especially now in the post-COVID era. I think the cooperation with industry is really very important for universities. Also, this study, I found it is also a bit older, 2012, but still very interesting for me. This is in French. It is related to the competence employabilité des docteurs. And I would just want to mention a graph from this report that I find useful. Because in this graph, sorry, that's also probably you will not see this very well, but I hope the slides and the recording will be available to everyone. But in a few words, you see on the x-axis there are the competencies that are actually searched by enterprises, and on the y-axis you see what the doctoral candidates develop during their studies. And then here on this line, you see that some elements like autonomy, project management, for instance, are really researched by companies. That they are really valued very much. And these are the activities that basically, our candidates do during their studies. So a doctorate, of course, is essential for an academic career, but also can be very important for a non-academic career. And I think it is also our duty to try to inform, other institutions outside academia about the value of our doctoral candidates. I'm waiting for the change of the slide. I hope it will change. Okay, so here you can see in this graph, but I think I skipped. So, yeah, I just want to mention that, of course, the COVID crisis changed a lot, as we know, the landscape for research and education all over the world. And actually the digital push that we received is very significant. And we hope that after this tragedy of the COVID pandemics, I think we can try to go back to a new normal in which some of the things we are experiencing will be useful. In this graph also, I hope you will see it. This is a graph showing the percentage of doctorate holders in different countries. And there are very many differences. In some countries, like, if you see United States, Switzerland, Germany, Sweden, the percentage is quite high. In some others is very low. But again, we have the problem that usually the number of PhD holders are actually higher than the number of academic positions. So my point here, again, is very important to link with other, non-academic institutions, to try to encourage them to value the doctorate. And of course, we speak a lot now in Europe and in other parts of the world about Industry 4.0, 5.0. Their doctorate holders are very important for their creativity, for their capability of solving problems, of finding new solutions for the industry and in general for the non-academic sector. Here, I have to say that the visibility of the PhD title in the non-academic sector sometimes is not high enough, I think, in many European countries. So I think we have to work in that direction to to make them more visible, more appreciated. Many institutions, if they don't do basic research, they say, we don't need a doctorate holder, so they feel that sometimes they are overqualified. I think this is a mistake, because a doctorate holder can be always very useful, I think, in all institutions. And also, I have to say, in my experience, unfortunately, the doctoral europaeus title is not very visible, but it's not very well known. So I know many universities are actually encouraging this title, but overall, and the candidates are very interested in getting it, but I don't know how much it is useful. So I think this maybe is a point for debate. But I have the impression that unfortunately it was not such a successful initiative. On the contrary, I have to say that the European University Initiative, I think, can be more powerful there. As you know, this initiative now at the moment create 41 alliances, and I'm very proud to say that unica has been very active in this initiative. At the moment, 34 unica members are already in one of the consortia, and actually we have at least one unica member in 18 of the 41 alliances funded so far. So basically 75% of the eligible members are already playing a role there. And then I have to say that the institutional engagement in the European University Alliance is very high. Very often rectors and presidents are involved, in the first person. So I want to thank also Laurinda for the very nice introduction. And then she said one of the barriers for the co-tutel is actually the strategic engagement of the institution, because if you start a co-tutel, from a single doctoral candidate or a supervisor, then you have a lot of bureaucratic, problems. But in the case of the European University Alliances, actually the leadership of universities is very much engaged. The member states are very much engaged with their Ministry of Education and Research. So I think there is hope, through this, trying to create joint and multiple doctorate at the level of the European University Alliances, actually to solve some of these issues. Because again, the leadership of university is involved, the political level at the member states is involved. So I think there is actually hope to create high, more visible doctorates in this. So again, at this moment, we have a lot of work to do. Again, as unica, we're very much engaged in this debate. We will organize meetings within our network, which of course are always open to anyone who is interested in participating. So I stop here, and thank you again for your attention.
Thank you, Luciano, a lot for this comprehensive presentation. Definitely, there are many topics that we would probably later on discuss. And now I would ask Sylvie for the next presentation.
Thank you, Irma, for the kind presentation. So I'm Sylvie Pommier. I'm Deputy Vice President for Doctoral Research at Université Paris-Saclay, but I'm also President of the RNCD, which is the primary academic association for French doctoral studies. Just to, first of all, talk about this association, it's really, it's a place where we can together in different French universities discuss all the topics that we can have about doctoral education, doctoral studies, including, for example, co-tutela agreements or the doctoral europaeus, etc. And the idea is that it is used most of the time to smooth a little bit our practice, to make sure that we share, core values together, have the same answers to the same questions. It's also interesting to discuss with the French Ministry of Higher Education and other stakeholders involved in doctoral employability or attractivity or regulations of doctoral studies, so we can speak together with the different stakeholders on these different topics. Lately, we have decided also to to be involved in the promotion of doctoral studies and of the doctorate in France, to increase the recognition of this degree, and also of the employability, to improve the employability. So we have started a big survey among doctoral students and PhD candidates, and also their supervisors, to check how they will just consider different problems. Now, I would just like to give you some insight on what we are doing very practically at University Paris-Saclay about these questions of interinstitutional collaborations. And first of all, University Paris-Saclay itself is an interinstitutional collaboration, since it was first created in 2015 as an alliance of existing French universities, grandes écoles, and research institutions. And it was transformed into a young university, a new university, in the beginning of 2020, so just before the COVID crisis. So, well, it's located in the south of Paris. We have about 7% of the doctoral researchers enrolled in France, and the number of PhD candidates has increased by about 4% since 2015. Well, we are very, very much interested into developing international, interinstitutional collaborations. First of all, because many of our PhD candidates, as I think it's the same also in other universities, have other nationalities than our French nationalities. And also, they can be coming into our institution for the doctoral degree, or before, during master degree, as a first step before pursuing as a doctorate. So the first start to improve or to smooth interinstitutional collaboration was to structure the university so it could be, it could have all the organization that helps this interinstitutional collaboration. So, for example, it is structured into undergraduate studies and graduate studies with different graduate schools, which share the activities of the research lab, doctoral level and master level, so that we can easily add some clarity when we are discussing with the American and so on area where it's undergraduate, graduates. But in addition, because we are in Europe, we also have a policy which is organized for each level, like bachelor, master's, and doctorate level, and I'm vice president for the doctorate level. So we can just make sure that through all the disciplinary fields, again, we organize the things consistently with the rest of the European Union, and with also some core values and principles. So I'd like to say also one of our first tasks was to, for example, for co-tutela agreement, was to start from something that was very, very dispersed among people initiative to start co-tutelas, and to create a strategy around co-tutelas, and to propose a unified framework for co-tutela agreement, and a unified criteria to decide whether or not we should to start a co-tutela, and what projects would be the most suitable for co-tutela, and for which project also we should advise to use another pathway. So this is something that was discussed with all the director of the doctoral schools together in every disciplinary fields, and also with the member institutions of the University Paris-Saclay when it was still an alliance. And so together we were able to start this common strategy for co-tutelas. Well, just to say something, one main idea that we have after a few years of experience of feedback from dealing with this kind of thing is that we need to have an overview of all the doctoral studies from really the start. How can we encourage students to engage into doctoral education at the master's level? in our master program, but also with foreign institutions with which we have set a large number of programs. And among them, we are involved in a European University Alliance with a set of universities, with other universities, 5 other universities, and around the field of global health. And one of the tasks that we have is together to set up a framework for mobility at the master's level, and also during PhD studies with a co-tutela program framework. The second step also is during the PhDs. In fact, we have the possibilities to develop co-tutelas, and we really need to, at the moment, we have 8% of our PhD defense which are done within the framework of a co-tutela agreement. And we really found exactly what said by Lorinda, that there is a real need to have a dedicated funding program for this co-tutela. So we have set this funding program to make sure that we can at least have the financial support for about 30 co-tutela per year. Of course, new co-tutela per year. Of course, there is also a need when we do that to discuss, and I think it's something very useful with the co-tutela framework, is to discuss with all our partner institutions abroad of how we organize a co-tutela, how we evaluate the skills for research of the students before their admissions to the doctorate levels, how we just organize the monitoring of their skills and development of competencies, and how at the end we organize the defense. And so the idea is really that by setting this co-tutela agreement, it should not be seen only as a bureaucratic and administrative work, because behind that, it's also a way of making sure and avoid the divergence between different universities, and make sure that we share common principles and values for evaluating the doctoral degree overall. Of course, it doesn't concern all PhD students, but the fact that for a few percent of our PhD students, we organize this co-deliverance of the doctoral degree, ensures the fact that we make sure that we are on the same track altogether at the international level. But nevertheless, it's quite difficult. It remains a heavy burden to organize co-tutelas together. And so it's also very interesting to value intermediate and less formal forms of interinstitutional international collaborations. For example, short times mobility. And for that, the European doctorate label is very interesting. And also, it could be just co-supervisions, international co-supervision, or very simply the fact that we could ask for every PhD students in some doctoral school that the panel for the defense jury would include at least one international examiner. In some disciplinary fields, it's very common. In other, we need to encourage the process. So you see, there are different steps to these interinstitutional collaborations, and we can have something that is at the local initiative, and some steps that are really encouraged by the institutions, either alone in each institutions, or together with our partners inside an alliance or inside an association of international universities. And also, what I would like to ask is to add also is that we need to follow the full path of PhD candidates from the start, from the choice of their subject to their employability. And at this step also, we can organize interinstitutional collaboration to make sure that, for example, after their defense, we would facilitate their international mobility for example, for postdoctoral research, or to find an academic job in another international institutions or whatever. This is something that we could organize together and smooth in our relationships. So this is something which is now a work in progress, but we are organizing at the moment a program of ambassadors of the university, for which we can use our graduates, PhD graduates, or supervisors that have been involved in co-tutelar agreements in other universities. So it's just the fact that if we have a few key persons that can help us to work together with other institutions, it would help. And in fact, it's really it doesn't mean skipping the work of international relations services, which are very important. It's just to have a side of these international relations services, researchers in the system that have a link with that can create a bridge between the two institutions, and that can smooth the process and also put some so it's price in fact the human relations in this system. So I would say, just to summarize what I feel could be the success factor for the interinstitutional relations, I would say that they are more successful and smooth if they are based on solid relations between research group, or the willingness to develop them, and not only on some individual opportunities which are not long-lasting relations. I would say also that there is a need to fill the gap between the national doctorate degree and the co-tutela, because there are a wide range of different forms of interinstitutional collaboration, more or less formals in between, and that they are very useful. And instead of climbing a huge step, we may use to use small steps or intermediate steps to go, for example, to the ultimate form of cooperation that we call the co-tutelar agreement. And also, we should not focus only on some points like the selection process or the defense, but on the whole PhD program, from the selection of the PhD students to their professional future after the PhD, and to see our interactions as a whole, and not only the degree that we are delivering, but also the whole PhD program, and really construct together full PhD programs instead of individual framework for degrees.
Thank you, Sylvia, a lot. We are perfectly in line with time, and I would probably invite all of the speakers here on the screen for the further discussion of the topic. And I would encourage all the audience to put the questions and to make the comments on the presentation that we are presented. I would like to thank all the presenters. Really very insightful presentations and very interesting experience. Actually, we covered a lot of topics, starting from attracting PhD candidates and prerequisites, and the process of co-tutel, and the challenges and the perspectives these collaboration may have. And we definitely observed that this could not be a single case process. This should be definitely some kind of institutional strategy part. Otherwise, that would take a lot of investment of the resources from many sides, and will not be definitely be as productive as we want it to be. So if there are no questions or comments yet in the chat, I don't see them. I would probably have the question to all of you first. Based on your experience, what do you think? Who is the main initiator of collaborative doctoral education leadership? I mean, is it education leadership? Is it senior researchers or the doctoral candidates most of the time? So probably this is the question to all of you.
Irma, I'm sorry, I did not hear the first part of the question.
Okay, my question was, who is the main initiator of this collaborative doctoral education leadership? Of this collaboration, is it leadership? Is it senior researchers or the doctoral candidates? Who would like to answer? Probably Luciano could start.
Okay, thank you. I can start. So I think actually there are different possibilities, and all of them can be useful. I also fully agree with Sylvie when she said, that there are several forms of possible collaborations between universities. But indeed, I think that this ambition to go towards full multiple and joint doctorates, I think, can be really useful. So, I mean, if we can try to go in that direction, I think we know that there are many challenges. As I mentioned in my presentation, I think this European University Initiative can be very useful in that direction. The important thing is the final quality. So this internationalization should increase the quality of the doctorate itself. So it should not just like a makeup that you have this international collaboration. No, it should really bring content and say, yes, the doctoral candidate is proposing maybe he himself or herself a collaboration because she or he feels that that relationship will improve the quality of the. So that is key. I mean, in all kind of collaborations, internationalization should increase the quality. And I think this happens in the majority of the cases.
Thank you. If any of you would comment on that, Sylvie, please.
Yeah, I think that it's a multi-step process, and I think that, on my opinion, for starting co-tutelles, of course, you need to have a student that is willing to enter this type of process. But in fact, it should. On my opinion, it should start from the strong collaboration between research groups. And I would say the leadership of the university is there to encourage and to smooth the process and to create different stages to recognize intermediate efforts to go to the co-tutela to encourage this process. And then if we have created some a framework which is favorable for these intensified collaborations, then we can just propose it as an opportunity to a variety of PhD students. And so they could be encouraged to go to this process, and it's a plus for them.
Thank you. Yes, Laurinda.
Yes, I agree with what the colleagues are saying. And I think that the co-tutelles are worse if they really increase the quality of the research. I also believe that they usually do, but the problem is that as they are usually organized in an individual basis, this brings a lot of work to everybody, I'd say. And if I think that what Sylvie was saying about the cooperation between the groups and this way of starting not from an individual wills, but from institutional forms of cooperation, they are consistent with that idea that I put forward about having an agreement that sets the framework at different levels that we have to think of, not just administrative levels, but also academic. I would say these are the most important ones, and of course the others we also need them for administrative reasons and so on. But and then it would be easier, because if we have this sort of umbrella agreement, but important agreement, not the ones we may probably be used to, and then it would be quite easy to prepare the individual agreements under this umbrella one.
Thank you, Laurinda.
There are different forms of cooperation that we can try, even maybe before reaching this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. In the chat, we have, thank you, Rosemary. We have several comments, And one of them is about, is it feasible to develop a virtual or hybrid blended version of Co-tutel? What is your idea about that? Because we have seen during this, especially pandemic times, how many activities could be shifted online. So could that be feasible from your perspective?
Well, if I may start,
Yeah.
I would say that it depends on what is the purpose of the co-tutel. I would say that some things we can achieve them at a distance, but others you will not be able to achieve. You can have remote supervision, but you cannot do some things if you need, and if it is the main purpose of the co-tutel to get immersed in a research environment, in a lab, you need to be there, to go there, and you need to use the tools, the equipment that is there in the lab to do analysis. This may be different, a bit different probably when you think about science and engineering, and when you think about human sciences. I mean, natural science versus human sciences, maybe a little bit different. But I would say that one of the things that you get when you engage into a co-tutel is that you have the opportunity to go abroad, to come close, immerse in a different culture, different language, and maybe you have the opportunity not just to get in touch with the local culture, but you have the chance to meet people that went there from coming from other parts of the world. And so I think that you can gain something, but you miss something.
Okay, thank you, Laurinda, a lot. There are several also comments and questions in the chat, which we would probably try to answer in the time left. But Luciano, you wanted to
just to add, I mean,
yeah.
I fully agree with Laurinda. I'm a bit, just a bit more optimistic in this hybrid models. We are debating, blended mobility a lot in Unica in the EduLab group that we have. Of course, physical mobility is very important for young people. I mean, we know that. But I have to say that virtual mobility also can offer very good opportunities, depending, of course, on the discipline. I mean, it's very difficult, of course, to do online certain activities, not only, let's say, in the natural sciences, but also, let's say, in archaeology, for instance. It's very difficult to become an online archaeologist. But there are opportunities to interact with different institutions at the same time, for instance, which is not possible physically. I mean, if you decide to go for a semester or for 1 year, and visit one university, that's it. You made that choice. Virtually, basically, you can interact with some of the best groups in your field at the same time. And then, in this model, I think it's very important to, connect a short period maybe of physical mobility. So you go there for a summer school, you go there for a few weeks, to meet the people you have been interacting with for 1 year, the professors you met. So I think there are very good models for hybrid education and research that I think, in the post-COVID era will become more popular than before.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Actually, we spoke quite a lot about co-tutel and the possibility of collaboration through this activity, but there is a very interesting comment and the question by Kim about could we not achieve the same benefits through other types of cooperation between the institutions? How could we respond on this question? Yes, Sylvie.
Yeah, I'd say that if we look to the cooperation between research groups and also the international experience for the PhD holders, there are other forms of that could achieve exactly the same goals, and that we should also recognize and emphasize when we talk about, for example, employability and so on. But there is something that is different for co-tutela, is that it is the way for different institutions to confront their principles and their values, or how they evaluate the skills, and how they organize, for example, the defense, how they select the PhD holders, how they organize the doctoral programs. Because making these agreements is a way of keeping the consistency with our
Partners.
views on the doctoral degree. And this is also because we have these co-tutel agreements that we can make sure that a PhD is still a PhD wherever it has been obtained. So I think there is a very, very different achievements by this co-tutel agreement, provided that it's not a strictly bureaucratic things that we put a strategy inside. But all the other things should be really valued, recognized, and because they are very, very useful. And I'm sure that for PhD students, PhD candidates, it's completely equivalent to have an experience without or with a co-tutela in a foreign country. And also, I'd say we have many foreign students. So they have an international experience simply because they come from their country. We also have doctoral candidates that are doing some field research. So they go in another country to do their research on some fields. But it doesn't have to be within the co-tutel agreements. But sometimes they spend very, very few time in our universities. They would spend all their times abroad because that's where they are doing their research. So this is all, I would say, a little bit difficult to exclude from the panel of what should be considered as valuable for a co-tutela or not.
Thank you. Actually, we are coming to the end of the panel, though there are really very interesting topics like for the further discussion. In the previous panel also, Alexander was saying that probably this could be the thoughts we would develop later on for the further meetings. So the question about if there could be kind of a set of good practices or challenges encountered, maybe collected to learn from each other. This would be a very good experience, really, because we all have some really very good practices that could be shared later on. For some very final remarks, if there is anything you would like to say to the audience, that would be the last minute kind of call.
For me, if I can say just a couple of words, I think unfortunately, I mean, thinking about this tragic period of COVID, I think, Europe really needs many, doctorate holders, with their creativity, with their capability to solve problems, to propose new solutions. So I think this is the wish for all the young people to, help Europe, to improve and to recover from this difficult period.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for this very interesting interaction and very interesting presentations. And thank you definitely for these very interesting questions and remarks that you posted in the chat. And the session is coming to the end, and I would invite our esteemed guests, Mr. Luc Gregor. Could you please join us? And I would give the floor to you for the closing session. Yes. Yeah, we do see you, and I give you the floor to introduce Mr. Michael Murphy for the closing session.
Thank you so much, Irma, and thank you and your panel for an excellent session. So indeed, as you say, we have reached the closing session, and we're privileged to have an address by our president of the European University Association, Michael Murphy. Let me just say a few words about his biography. Michael graduated in medicine from University College Cork in 1976. Following postgraduate medical training in Dublin and in clinical pharmacology at the Royal Postgraduate Medical School in London, he received his doctorate from the National University of Ireland in 1984. Dr. Murphy spent a decade at the faculties of pharmacology, physiology, and medicine at the University of Chicago before returning to Cork as professor of clinical pharmacology and later as dean of medicine. An expert on drug therapy for cardiovascular disease, he led several international clinical trials of interventions to reduce cardiovascular mortality. A past president of University College Cork, which he did for a decade up to 2017, he's been active in many academic organizations in Europe and in the USA, and has served as Vice Chancellor of the National University of Ireland, Chair of the Health Research Board of Ireland, Chair of the Irish Universities Association, and Chair of the Permanent Working Group of European Hospital Doctors. Michael, please take it. Do we have Michael online?
He is online, Luke. I can see his name. I'm uncertain. Michael, can you put your sound on and your camera on, please? Okay. He says in the chat that he will return.
Yeah, I see that.
Um,
Okay, please bear with us for a few seconds. I hope this won't take long.
Luke, I would propose we have this video from your university, the campus of Manchester. I propose I would show that now into the audience while we wait for Michael to come back.
Very well, that's fine.
Yeah, I will do that. It will show in a few seconds.
Well, welcome, Michael. I think we can certainly see you.
Having seen that clip, I can certainly say I look forward to an in-person meeting next year in Manchester.
Thank you so much.
Just a few.
I've introduced you already in your absence, so please go ahead.
I heard all that.
Oh, very good.
So I will abbreviate. Firstly, a big thank you to everybody for participating. 350 people registering in September, the most frenetic month of the academic year. That testifies to dynamism in the doctoral education domain. Goes without saying that the Council is a flagship at EUA, and what you have done in the Council over the last 20 years, leading a revolution in reshaping doctoral education, is remarkable. We all remember the rather lonely experience of the doctor-vitae relationship, the single supervisor, and the fact that you've also championed the inclusion of formal modules of formative learning has been really, really critical, because this model is the foundation for interdisciplinary discoveries and for collaboration, for developing interpersonal skills, but it's also one that enables more transparency and more openness. And this, very importantly, counters the risk of avoidable error, dishonesty, and fraud, which science and universities just cannot afford anymore in this new era. So I congratulate the Council and all the members on what you have done. We never stop recreating the future. And this morning you heard from Thomas Jorgensen about the vision for universities in the next 15 years, universities without walls. Not change for the sake of change, but a reaction to all the drivers of change, which you're very familiar with. And the pandemic has featured very much in your conversations, because it's been a very timely accelerator of behavior changes that were really necessary if we're to meet our sustainability goals in the next 10 years. For us, from the pandemic, the hybrid university campus has emerged. We talked about that for some 20 years probably, because we saw the necessity of it for carbon neutrality and broader access, for lifelong learning, experiential learning. And even though I guess it has met Deepak Chopra's aphorism that all great changes are preceded by chaos, there is no going back. And the pandemic has been, in this regard, a boon. You have also discussed something that will remain incredibly important to us. The pandemic showed us that we needed virologists and epidemiologists and pharmacologists and medical specialties, sociologists, behavioral scientists, political scientists, information scientists, the creative arts, in order to manage the deep challenge. And of course, this is a foundation for the future, recognizing the collective need for interdisciplinarity. I think Luca mentioned earlier the importance of global collaboration in research and in doctoral education. It's evident that we're going to need global cooperation and collaboration into the future. And the reality is that research, along with education, innovation, are the best intercultural bridge builders. So I'm glad that that has been emphasized very much in the program. And there was also some reference earlier in the session this morning to the importance of collaboration with industry. That was clearly seen during the pandemic. And it emphasizes the importance of collaboration in doctoral programs, and also researcher migration between the two sectors. That needs to be encouraged in the coming years. Many other topics were sidelined by the pandemic, but I'm glad that the CDE took some on board, particularly academic freedom, diminishing in many areas through reducing block grants for universities, which gave freedom in the past, governments prescribing more key performance indicators in their agreements, annual agreements with universities, and of course the greater top slicing for in research for specific targeted programs, which also diminish our latitude. I'm glad you discussed those, and I'm glad the German presidency of the EU saw the importance of developing the Bonn Declaration on research freedom last year. So I'm editing my comments because of the time constraints, but I just want to acknowledge the work that you do. And to you, Luke, in particular, for your chairing of CDE, the wonderful leadership you give to it, and to your colleagues on the steering board. And I guess you've got 2 minutes left now to make the usual thanks to all those who organized the program. But I salute you all on behalf of the EUA, and I look forward to actually seeing you in Manchester next year. Back to you, Luke.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your hugely encouraging remarks, which will be an inspiration to us all. And so we do indeed come to the final part of a very full and rewarding 3 days where we've been considering how we can prepare doctoral education for the post-pandemic world. We may still have some difficult times ahead of us before we can confidently use the term post-pandemic, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that doctoral education is, as emphasized so many times in this meeting, is about the future, and that the people we are training will be the leaders in our many fields of study, and among them, the leaders of our universities. As we heard, the skills, knowledge, and critical thinking they acquire also equip them to contribute widely to society. Several contributors to this meeting have emphasized that we're not here solely to support what Thomas Jorgensen called this morning the utilitarian approach, but also to ensure that they carry the core values of academic life, just stated by Michael, including standing up for academic freedom, autonomy, research ethics, and integrity. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we've taken advantage of our virtual existence to open our doors more than usual to colleagues from around the world. The insights they shared with us provided a deeper understanding of the implications of the pandemic and how we need to approach this and the other massive global challenge of sustainability. And the fact that we need to do these on a globally inclusive basis. So as we wind up, I hope you can join me in thanking some very important people who've enabled this meeting. Let me start with those who've been invisible to most of the participants, other than some of them interacting with the speakers. And that is our wonderful technical team who've kept us all going through these 3 days. Headed by Christelle Vasselet, Director of the Comms Unit in the EUA. And then I'll go through the names. Caroline Marisal, Aurélie Clenet, Inez Meja, Valerie Basca, Katerina Topalidou, Jessica Carter, and Leo Hyamny. So thanks to all of them. I know we can't hear applause, but if we were live, they would all be hearing it now, I'm sure. I'd like to thank also my colleagues on the steering committee who worked hard to put the agenda together. And last but absolutely not least, the CDE Secretariat. Anna Maria Panuasu, and very visible to you and absolutely the pillar around which we've built this meeting, the head of the CDE, Alexander Haskell. So thank you to all of you. A little bit of news about future activities. Regrettably, the 2022 workshop planned at the University of Agricultural Sciences and Veterinary Medicine at Cluj-Napoca in Romania has had to be postponed for 1 year to 2023. We will be organizing activities for members in the interim. If the pandemic situation permits, this will include an in-person event at one of the 2 EUA seats, either in Geneva or Brussels. And among other things, this will provide an opportunity to discuss the final results of the survey. As you've heard from Michael and seen in that little video, I'm really happy to say that our next annual meeting will be at my own institution, the University of Manchester. It will be a huge pleasure and privilege to welcome you to our campus. The theme of the meeting will be time and timing in doctoral education. This is perhaps a little bit cryptic, but it does open up some core issues for us. For now, I will leave it to your imaginations to understand what we will cover. And of course, we will make it much clearer as we approach the meeting. So at this point, I will say goodbye to you, and that there is one more opportunity in the meeting. I'm asked to remind you, there is a Wanda networking session where you can meet your peers if you want to discuss any further matters. If you click leave in the top right-hand corner, you'll go back to the lobby and you can find this. So thank you, everyone. I hope you have a safe and successful time as your academic activities open up in the coming weeks. Goodbye to you all.